Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I continue to bring you the story of Hoai and Tiểu San. In this episode, the story will go deeper into an event that once seemed buried for many years, the return of the man from the past, the one known as Hoai's biological father, the man who once left, leaving behind a woman and a child to struggle through the hardest days of their lives on their own. In the previous episodes, that journey began with the appearance of a man carrying countless regrets. He did not show up loudly or approach directly, but instead quietly hired a detective to trace back the past, searching for the woman named Thoa, the one he had left behind more than 30 years ago. Meanwhile, the lives of Hoai and Tiểu San continued in their own way, calm yet filled with plans for the future, simple hopes they nurtured together day by day. Then, in the most recent episode, everything gradually became clearer. That man was no stranger. He was Hoai's biological father. He knew he had realized it, but he still did not have the courage to step forward. He chose to stand from afar, watching his son, following every step in Hoai's life, even secretly helping without revealing his identity. It was a belated care, a love suppressed over many years, and also a fear. The fear that if he faced the truth, he would be rejected, turned away, completely denied in his son's life. And now, in this new episode, everything no longer remains at a distance. After gathering enough information, after days of only daring to watch from behind, the man finally made a decision he must have struggled with deeply. He no longer wanted to hide. He no longer wanted to only look without being able to reach. And so, he went there in person to Thoa's house, Hoai's mother. The moment he appeared, it was as if time stopped. The air turned suffocatingly silent. When Thoa saw him, all emotions seemed to rush back at once. She froze. Her eyes were not only filled with surprise, but also shock, and a pain buried deep for so many years suddenly resurfacing. The man she once believed would never appear in her life again was now standing right in front of her, real and undeniable, no longer just a distant memory. He was the one who had left her, the one who had forced her to face life alone, to endure hardships, to raise a child without a father's presence. Those memories had never disappeared with time. They had only been lying there quietly, and now with his return, everything was awakened. The atmosphere grew heavier than ever. Thoa did not step closer. She did not greet him. Her gaze turned cold as a way to protect herself. Over the years she had learned to be strong, to live without depending on anyone. And now, the man who had hurt her the most returned, as if to break everything she had built to stand firm. She did not want to look at him for long, nor did she want to hear anything more. But the man did not come to justify himself. He did not try to explain what had happened. He did not offer excuses for his past. Instead, he lowered his head, a simple gesture, yet filled with so many unspoken words. It was an admission of his mistakes, an acceptance that what he had done could not be denied. For the first time after all those years, he said sorry. His voice dropped, no longer as strong as his appearance, but trembling and broken. He spoke about the years that had passed, about the mistakes he could never go back and fix. He talked about sleepless nights, when memories replayed endlessly, when the image of Thoa and her child never left his mind, not even for a moment. He did not deny what he had done. He did not run away. He simply said that he had lived in regret for more than 30 years. Not a single day had he been able to forget. Not a single night had he truly felt at peace. He did not expect immediate forgiveness. He understood that such wounds could not be erased with just a few words. He did not dare to ask her to open her heart right away. The only thing he hoped for was a chance. A very small chance to make up for the past, to do something, no matter how little, for what he had lost. But Thoa remained silent. That silence was not empty of emotion, but filled with too many at once. Pain, anger, hurt, and exhaustion from the years she had endured. To her, what had happened was not something that could be forgotten, not something that could be easily forgiven. She refused, firmly. No hesitation, no wavering. She did not want to see him again. She did not want to reopen the door to a past she had tried so hard to close. The man stood there for a long time. He said nothing more. He did not beg. He did not force. He simply stood in silence as if accepting everything. And then finally he turned away. His steps were slow, heavy, as if carrying all the words left unsaid, all the hopes that had just begun to appear only to be extinguished. But before he completely left, he stopped, turned back to look at Thoa one last time, and said one sentence, a quiet one yet lingering deeply. I won't give up until you and your son can forgive me. After that encounter, nothing was the same anymore. Thoa returned to her familiar space, but her heart could no longer be as calm as before. The memories she thought had long been asleep now came back one by one. The difficult days of raising her child alone, the moments of exhaustion with no one to share, the silent tears. All of it resurfaced, clearer and more painful than ever. She once thought she was strong enough to move on, but facing it again she realized, some wounds, no matter how much time passes, are never easy to heal. And yet, amid those tangled emotions, she also understood one thing. The past cannot be changed. What has happened will always remain a part of life. But ahead, there is still the future. And that is what keeps her from stopping her thoughts. And above all, Hai has the right to know the truth. After everything that had happened, after the encounter that left Thoa's heart unsettled, she understood that she could no longer remain silent. No matter how painful or difficult it was, the truth still had to be told. Not to reopen the past, but to face it clearly, so that nothing would remain hidden within her own life anymore. After many moments of hesitation and deep thought, Thoa finally made a decision that was not easy at all. She chose to talk to Hai. The moment the conversation began, the atmosphere between mother and son became heavier than usual. There were no familiar questions, no simple everyday exchanges like before. Thoa's eyes carried a weight, and Hai, though unaware of what was coming, could still sense that something unusual was waiting ahead. And then slowly she told him everything. Without hiding, without avoiding. The truth was revealed piece by piece, like layers of memory being opened. From the distant past to what had just happened recently. From the man's return, his search, to the moment he stood at their doorstep, saying the words he had never had the chance to say for so many years. When Hai heard that, he froze. In that moment he said nothing. His gaze seemed to stop, not because he didn't understand, but because he was trying to absorb a truth that was too sudden. A truth he had never imagined he would have to face like this. The man he had no memory of, who had never existed in his life, was his biological father. The silence lingered. The space became suffocatingly heavy. But Hai's emotions did not stop at shock. They quickly shifted into something colder. A kind of coldness. Not the absence of emotion, but emotions that had been pushed deep down, leaving only a calmness that felt distant on the surface. Hai did not react strongly, did not explode in anger immediately, yet that very silence made everything even more tense. He understood the story, but he did not accept it. In Hai's mind, that man had no right to appear in his life at this moment. More than 30 years was not a short time. It was an entire lifetime. The years he grew up without a father. The years his mother carried everything alone, without complaint, without help. All those years, where had he been? What had he been doing? Had he ever thought about them? Those questions did not need to be spoken, yet they were clear in Hai's mind. And it was exactly those thoughts that made it impossible for him to accept such a late return. To him, responsibility was not something you could abandon and then reclaim whenever you wanted. Love was not something that could appear just because of a few apologies. So why now, after everything had passed for so long, Could that man return and hope to be forgiven? Hai could not find an answer, and perhaps he did not want to. Amid those tangled thoughts he made his decision. A clear decision. Firm. Without hesitation. He refused. He did not want to accept that man as his father. Not because he did not understand the story, but because he could not accept it. He could not pretend that nothing had happened. He could not easily open his heart to someone who had been absent his entire life. His voice was not loud, but every word was certain. There was no room for change. This was not a momentary reaction, but the result of everything he had lived through, everything he had witnessed from his mother, and everything he had endured on his own without a father by his side. Thoa remained silent as she listened. She did not blame Hai, nor did she try to persuade him, because more than anyone she understood. Hai's emotions were completely justified. The pain was not hers alone. Hai carried his share too, even if he had never spoken about it. The atmosphere between them fell into silence. A heavy silence. No arguments. No tears. Just the quiet thoughts of each person, spreading within that stillness. The story seemed to stop there. When everything had been said, when Hai had made his decision, when the past had once again been brought up, only to seem closed again. But it was not over. Because some things, even when spoken, are not truly resolved. And some bonds, even when broken long ago, do not disappear so easily. One day, when everything seemed to have settled after the conversation between mother and son, when the words that had been spoken felt as though they had closed a heavy chapter of the past, somewhere else, that man still could not stop thinking. He could not return to silence like before, nor could he continue standing from afar, simply watching. What had happened made him realize that if he kept hesitating, he might never have another chance again. He did not stop, and he refused to accept that everything would end after just one rejection. After countless nights of thinking, after repeatedly asking himself whether he even had the right, whether his appearance now was already too late, in the end, he still chose to move forward. But this time he could not come as a father, because he understood that title at this moment had no place in Hai's heart. So he chose another way. A way that he believed at the very least would allow him to face his son. He arranged a meeting. Not a private one, not a personal one, but a business meeting. Under the identity of an investor seeking cooperation. Everything was carefully prepared, down to the smallest detail. From the information, the approach, to the timing, everything was calculated to be as natural and reasonable as possible. He left no sign that this meeting had anything to do with the past. To outsiders, it was simply a normal business discussion like any other. And when he appeared in front of Hai, he did not carry the demeanor of someone seeking forgiveness. He appeared as a partner, proper, composed, clear, in a role that Hai could accept without suspicion. Hai had no doubts. In work, he always maintained professionalism and principles. He approached the meeting like any other, with calmness, focus, and without letting personal emotions interfere. To him, this was simply an opportunity for cooperation, a discussion that needed to be handled seriously. He welcomed the man with just enough politeness, not too close, not too distant, maintaining the proper boundary of a professional relationship. The conversation began. First, everything went naturally. They discussed business, development directions, potential opportunities if they worked together. Questions were asked clearly, answers were given coherently. The atmosphere in the room showed no sign of tension, and even felt somewhat favorable. Hai remained focused. He listened, analyzed, and expressed his views clearly. To him, everything was still just work. But to the man, every passing minute became heavier. He looked at Hai, not just as a partner, but as a son he had never had the chance to be with, never witnessed growing up, never heard call him father in its true meaning. Every word Hai spoke, every way he handled problems, every expression in his thinking, all made him realize more clearly than ever that the man in front of him was not only mature, but also the result of years he had not been there. The more he looked, the harder it became to stay composed. The emotions he had suppressed began to rise, uncontrollably, and then, there came a moment when he could no longer pretend that nothing was wrong. The conversation slowed. The business talk faded. The room grew quieter. And in that silence, he decided to speak. The man opened his mouth. His voice was no longer steady. It carried a heaviness, a slight tremble, as if each word bore the weight he had held inside for so long. He did not go in circles. He did not delay. He did not try to lead into it. He spoke directly. He told the truth. One sentence, but enough to shatter the normalcy of this meeting. In that moment, everything seemed to stop. The space froze. No sound. No movement. Hai did not react immediately. He did not ask questions. He did not interrupt. He remained silent. But that silence made the atmosphere more tense than any words could. Hai was stunned. His expression changed clearly, from his usual calm, to shock at facing such a sudden truth. And then almost immediately, those emotions were pushed down, suppressed, leaving behind a cold layer on his face. Unrevealed, contained, but enough for the other person to feel the distance. Those words were not just information. They felt like cuts, each one touching parts Hai had never wanted to face. The unclear memories that had always existed, the empty spaces in his life he had grown used to not naming, were now dragged into the light. Everything his mother had gone through, everything he had lacked, everything resurfaced. No denial, no questioning. Hai needed no further confirmation. He stood up, decisively, without slowing down, without hesitation, without looking at the man again. He turned his back and walked away, each step firm, no hesitation, no sign of stopping. He did not accept it, not because he did not understand, but because he could not accept it. He could not pretend that what he had just heard could change the past. He could not believe that this appearance now could fill what had been missing for more than 30 years. He gave the man no chance to explain, not because there was nothing to say, but because to Hai any explanation at this moment had already become meaningless. The door closed. The sound was soft, but enough to end everything. Behind that door, the man still stood there. He did not follow. He did not call out. He simply remained still. His eyes empty. No clear hope left. Only a sense of loss. A feeling he might have known before, but never as heavy as this moment. He understood. He understood that what he had lost could not be regained with just one confrontation. That past mistakes could not be erased with an apology. That 30 years could not be shortened into a single moment. Regret rose within him, but could not be spoken, only held in silence. He walked away, but that did not mean everything had ended inside him. His silence was not emptiness. It was how he held everything in, holding back the rising emotions, holding back thoughts he could not yet put into words, holding on to the distance he was not ready to cross. He was still unable to open his heart, and perhaps not ready to face it again. The distance between them remained, unchanged, unreduced, as deep as before, and with no sign that it would easily disappear. Could that distance ever be bridged? Could what was lost be found again, even in part? Could a father-son bond, after more than 30 years apart, still have a chance to heal? Everything still lies ahead. Stay tuned for the next episode on my channel to find out what happens next.
Xin chào mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Nay thì mình mang đến cho mọi người video về câu chuyện của Tiểu San và CEO Hải như mọi người. Tập hôm nay thì sẽ tiếp nối với tập hôm trước đó về hành trình nhận lại bố của mình, của Hải á mọi người. Bây giờ thì mình chưa làm xong video. Lúc mà mình đang quay video này là mình vẫn đang quá trình làm, thì mình muốn chia sẻ một chút với mọi người. Thì video hôm nay như mọi người cũng thể thấy là sẽ thấy cung bậc cảm xúc của Hải thay đổi liên tục. Nó sẽ kiểu giống như là anh tưởng chừng là sẽ không bao giờ nhắc tới bố mình nữa, nhưng hôm nay thì bố anh đã quay trở lại, và sự tan vỡ trong anh nó lại được khơi dậy khi anh nghĩ đến những năm tháng của anh đã vất vả cùng mẹ mưu sinh cuộc sống, những ngày tháng khó khăn của hai mẹ con khi bị coi thường vì việc bố anh bỏ đi, mẹ anh phải một mình nuôi lớn anh. Vậy thì liệu diễn biến tiếp theo sẽ như thế nào? Hãy cùng đón xem tập sau nhé mọi người. Tạm biệt mọi người.